Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya. So today we'll continue listening together to suttas found in the Itivuttaka. So these suttas are very, very beautiful. They're very short. So the suttas in the Itivuttaka are very good to read just one sutta a day. And you can get very, very deep Dhamma meaning. Right? That's the nice thing about these suttas, that even though they're not very long, they may not have a lot of details, but when we think about them very wisely, when we apply the other Dhamma knowledge that we have, when we apply them to our own lives, then they become extremely meaningful and extremely beneficial. So the first sutta is called Bright Protectors. It's the 15th sutta in the second chapter. This was said by the Lord, said by the Arahants, so I heard. Bhikkhus, these two bright principles protect the world. What are the two? Shame and fear of wrongdoing. If, bhikkhus, these two bright principles did not protect the world, there would be no discerned respect for mother or maternal aunt or maternal uncle's wife or a teacher's wife or the wives of honored persons. And the world would have fallen into promiscuity, as with goats, sheep, chickens, pigs, dogs, and jackals. But as these two bright principles protect the world, there is discerned respect for mother or maternal aunt or maternal uncle's wife or a teacher's wife or the wives of other honored persons. So here, we're learning about two very important principles, hiri and ottappa, this moral shame and moral dread. And specifically, the Supreme Buddha is teaching us as it relates to the third precept, committing sexual misconduct. So, what are these two things, these two great protectors? Hiri and ottappa. So the first one is a sense that we have that something is wrong to do, that we shouldn't even consider doing it. And the second sense is this fear that we have of the results of our action, either the fear of being blamed by the people, the fear of our own guilty feeling after we've done it, or the fear of what we'll have to experience in samsara because of doing this action. So he's using this example of sexual misconduct because it's very powerful, and it's also very important, of course. That in this world we can see that people have a sense, right, of our family members. You don't hear about daughters marrying their fathers, right, or sons marrying their mothers or their aunts, right? You don't hear about that. Because even this is something that people have a sense that it's not proper. Even people who haven't heard the Dhamma have a sense that this isn't proper. So even to that degree, many people have this sense of moral shame, moral dread. But what's the example that the Supreme Buddha gives about a situation where there isn't that sense of shame, that sense of something not being the right thing to do. Do you remember the examples he gave? Pigs, sheep, jackals. So when a pig wants to have a baby, it doesn't go around and say, are you my mother? Are you my aunt? How am I related to you? Right? He doesn't go around the barnyard taking a survey. Right? Or the squirrels that you see chasing each other around. They're not chasing, asking, is it okay for me to have children with you? Are you my aunt? Are you my friend's wife? Doesn't work that way in the animal world, does it? The Supreme Buddha says that if we don't have this sense of shame, that even human beings can fall into this terrible state, like the animal world. That without this sense of there being things that are wrong to do, people will just behave like animals, not just around sexual misconduct, but stealing, right? When an animal is hungry and it wants to eat something, does it say, oh, these vegetables, they belong to the people who planted this garden, they've worked very hard to plant these vegetables, I shouldn't eat these. Does a rabbit say that? No. He thinks, oh, these must be mine. Doesn't ever hesitate. Will eat an entire garden in one night, call his friends, and they eat everything. They don't think, oh, someone has worked hard to plant these, I didn't do any work to get this food, let me just go eat grass. Right? There's lots of grass in this yard. They don't think that way. They see something delicious and they eat it. This is what animals are like. And many human beings, they're not so different than animals, are they? They get hungry and they see a way that they can steal something, that they can get food without paying for it. And then when they've stolen it, they actually feel very happy, right? Because they say, I didn't even have to work for this food. It's the best kind of food, right? It was totally free, just like animals. So even though someone, it may not be common for human beings to try and marry their mothers or their fathers, right? But in many, many ways, people lack this sense of wrongdoing. They lack this sense that they'll be blamed for doing something bad. Because in our minds, we can come up with many, many different reasons why we think we're right, how we can justify. We can say, oh, this shop, their food is very, very expensive. The food really isn't worth that price. They have too much money anyway. So I'll let them practice charity, right? I'll let them practice dana to me, and they don't even have to do anything. The mind is very, very tricky when it's ruled by greed. So in the time of the Supreme Buddha, there was a very famous story about King Pasenadi. Do you remember that story? He fell in love with a woman that he saw when he was riding through the street. He fell in love with this very beautiful woman. And so right away, he tried to find out how he could get this woman. But there was a little problem. She was married. But for a king, anything can be possible. So the king tried to come up with some plan how he could get this woman. Did he have a sense of shame? Did he have a sense of wrongdoing? When he got that news that this woman was already married, did he think, oh, her husband is very lucky. She's very lucky to be married. I'll let them live in peace. Right? If he had a sense of shame, a sense of wrongdoing, that's what he would have thought. But what was happening in his mind? Greed, lust, Really, really strong, powerful things. So we can also think, maybe I'm not the type of person who would ever think to do that. But if we haven't eliminated greed from our mind, we're always very close to being able to do something that we shouldn't do, if we don't have this very, very strong sense of hiri and ottappa. So do you remember what the king did? He called the husband and he said, I want you to work for me. Was the husband happy? No, he was nervous. Right? Ordinary people, they don't suddenly get called to the palace to get a job offer. So he was very nervous. And the king, he must have had some sense that he could be blamed if he just had this man killed right away. So he cooked up a plan how he could justify killing this man. He said to the man, I want to bathe this evening, and I want to use a very special kind of red clay, and I want a very special kind of flowers, and you can find these in a river that's a yojana away, and I need them right away, tonight, for my bath. And the river, it's guarded by nagas, so good luck, get going. And the man knew that it was going to be very, very difficult to do this. So he ran home and he told his wife, I'm done for. I don't know how I'll be able to do this. It's too far away, and the Nagas may not even give me this special red clay, these special flowers. So his meal wasn't even finished being cooked yet, but he wrapped up the uncooked rice in a tight packet and let it cook along the way. Right? That's how afraid he was, and he let the meal cook in his bag as he ran towards this river. And along the way, he saw someone who was also traveling, who looked hungry. And this man, he must have been a very, very wise man, because he knew about the power of merit. If he only knew about running, right, then he wouldn't have looked at anybody else. He would have just ran as fast as he could to get to that place. But he knew about merit, and he knew how powerful merit was, and that when we collect merit, things that might seem impossible can suddenly become possible. So he saw that traveler, and he knew that offering food to someone on a journey collects lots and lots of merit, even if they're an ordinary person. So he took part of his lunch and he shared it with that traveler. And then he kept running to the river. When he got to the river, he ate most of the rest of the meal, and then, again, because he was remembering merit and how to collect merit, he threw little bits of the food into the river, thinking, may this be for the animals that live in this water. So he practiced generosity to a traveler, practiced generosity to ordinary animals. The Supreme Buddha said, even to ordinary animals, when we practice generosity, we collect merit, that there are big results to be had from that. So after he had done these things, he knew that he was still going to need help to get these very special, this special red clay, these special types of flowers. So he made a statement. He said, I know that there are heavenly beings, I know that there are nagas who understand merit, who appreciate merit. And so may these deities, may these nagas who appreciate merit, I share all the merit that I've collected with them today. I haven't done anything unwholesome. I've done things very wholesome by practicing dana. So I'll share all my merit with any deities who can help me get this special clay, these special flowers. And one of the nagas in the river heard this wish that he had. And because they understood merit as well, this Naga changed his form into a human being and came up to the man and said, what do you need? And the man told him, and he said, well, what can you give me in exchange for this special clay, these special flowers? And the man said, I'm very poor, I'm very helpless. All I've done is collect merit today. So I'll share with you all the merit that I collected. And the Naga said, okay, you have a deal. And he gave him the clay, he gave him the flowers, and the man took off, running back to the palace. So remember, King Pasenadi, he's been back at the palace this whole time, hasn't he? Probably nervous that the man was going to actually come back, that this man would find some way to get these things and come back. So what did he do? He locked the door early, locked the door to the city early, so the man couldn't even get back in. Because the king wanted for sure to be able to say that this man had failed in his job and that therefore he should be killed. Right? Remember the whole plan. He's trying to get the wife and he needs to get rid of the husband. And he doesn't want to be blamed for just killing the husband and taking the wife. So he's cooked up this scenario, this challenge for the man. But because the man was virtuous, because the man understood how to perform wholesome deeds, he was able to achieve his job. But he got to the city gate and he saw that it was closed. So then he put the clay down outside the gate, he put the flowers next to them, and he cried out for everyone to hear, look, I did what the king told me to do. I got the clay for his bath, I got the flowers. The gate's been closed early. Surely something terrible is about to happen. But see, I'm innocent. I've even done this impossible thing. And then where did he go? To see the Supreme Buddha, right? Because people in trouble know that they can find refuge with the Supreme Buddha. So meanwhile, the king didn't have his clay for his bath, and then he went to bed. But he didn't sleep very well, for a few reasons, right? He was thinking about this beautiful woman, for one, and he was thinking about the husband, right? If this husband was going to be able to perform this service. But then whenever he tried to sleep, he kept having a terrible dream where he would hear horrible, horrible sounds, people crying out in great pain. And so the king didn't get any sleep. He didn't get any peace at all. And the next morning when he woke up, he went to his advisors and said, Sirs, I had this terrible dream last night. I heard these horrible, horrible sounds. And what do you think the advisor said? He said, "Oh, king, this is a very, very bad omen. You have to perform a sacrifice. You have to kill a certain number of cows, a certain number of sheep, a certain number of goats. And if you do all this killing, then surely you'll prevent whatever these bad omens are foretelling." So what do you think? Have you ever heard about things working that way? That you can kill and get rid of something bad that's going to happen? No. No. And whenever a king starts to do this, there's lots of suffering in the palace, isn't there? Because all these animals have to be brought. All these people know that they're about to be killing these innocent animals. And so fortunately, the king was married to a very wise woman. Right? He already had a very good wife, Queen Malika, right, who he had forgotten about, thinking about this other woman. But fortunately, Queen Malika said, "King, you're a fool. Why do you think you can prevent something bad from happening? By killing living beings. These advisors that you have, they don't know anything. But here living in your kingdom is the Supreme Buddha, and he's the one that really knows about bad omens. Go to him. Set these animals free. You're not going to fix anything by killing these animals. So King Pasenadi went to see the Supreme Buddha. And who else was sitting there but this man that he was trying to kill? And so the man explained to the Supreme Buddha how tired he was from having traveled so much the day before, and what the king had set him up to do. And the king explained to the Supreme Buddha these terrible sounds that he heard that kept him from sleeping. So the Supreme Buddha said, those sounds that you heard, they weren't foretelling, a bad thing that was going to happen. They were actually beings that were reborn in the hell realm. Right? Do you remember this part of the story? That they were 4 men who had come into a lot of money in the human world, and they tried to decide how they would spend this money. They came up with different ideas. One person said, well, let's collect merit. Other 3 didn't like that idea. Eventually they decided to enjoy sensual pleasures, to eat delicious food, to wear nice clothing, to get beautiful women, and enjoy themselves in this way. And those men, when they died, they weren't born in a good destination. They were born in a hell realm, all together in the same pot. They were being cooked in this pot. And after a very, very long time, one of them would float up to the top of this boiling pot of copper or oil or something very terrible. And all they would be able to get out was a single syllable, explaining the terrible things that they had done, and how they wished that they had collected merit, how they wished that they had avoided doing bad things, how they wished that they weren't dedicated to sensual pleasures. And that these were the sounds that the king heard. And when the king heard this, he realized he was doing something really, really bad, wasn't he? All because of this greed, this lust that he had. That he was completely rid of this sense of shame. Remember, at the very beginning, he could have, when he found out that the woman was married, he could have said, okay, my bad luck, right? Good for them that they're married. They're my subjects, I'll protect them. But he didn't do that. His mind was full of greed. So full of greed that he was about ready to kill someone. To trick someone into doing something that they couldn't do, and kill, just to satisfy his greed, just to satisfy his own lust. And then the Supreme Buddha taught, this samsara, it's also very long, because people do these bad things again and again. They don't have this sense of shame. They don't have this natural aversion to doing bad things. And that's why it's so important for us to develop this sense. Because when our mind is overcome with greed, when our mind is overcome with hatred, it's very easy for us to slip if we don't have this very strong sense. No, that's not right to do. It's not right to steal. It doesn't matter who it belongs to. It doesn't matter if they'll miss it or not. It's not right to steal. In this long round of samsara, I've stolen things many, many times because I didn't know the teachings of the Supreme Buddha. Let me stop this stealing. If I'm afraid of being without things, then I need to protect other people's property. That through stealing things, then eventually we have to lose our own things, whether in this life or some future life. But if we're overcome with greed, it's very easy, just like the king tried to justify things, thinking, well, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want, I can make this job for him. If someone doesn't do a job that the king says, then the king's allowed to kill him. So for us, we need to be very, very careful to develop this very strong sense of what's good and what's bad, because our conditions may change, right? Now, you may have lots and lots of food at home, right? Probably if you go home and look in your refrigerator, more food than you could eat, right? Maybe even so much that some of it's going to go bad and you'll have to get rid of it. And so you think, I would never steal food, right? But then you go away to college, you start hanging out with people who don't mind stealing, you don't get that check from your parents a certain week, and you're really hungry, and everybody else is going out and they're going to steal something, right? You've never been hungry before, so you've never thought about what it would be like to be hungry, so hungry that you'd steal. And this is another very important factor, that if we associate with people who don't have this sense of moral shame and moral dread, it's very easy for us to pick up these habits. Maybe our whole lives we've practiced the precepts, but then we start hanging out with people who don't keep the precepts, who think it's okay to tell lies, to make someone happy, to get out of trouble. And little by little, these things start to feel okay to us. They start to feel like maybe they're not such a bad thing, because we can't see the results right away. So once there was a householder named Dhananjani, and he was a disciple of the Venerable Sariputta. And he had a wife who was very good, who kept the precepts, who was a faithful disciple of the Supreme Buddha. And as long as this wife was alive, this householder, he kept the precepts. He didn't steal, he didn't lie, he didn't kill things. But then, eventually, his wife died. And once the Venerable Sariputta came back to the town that he was living in, and he asked about this Brahmin householder. He said, how is he doing? And the monk said, oh, he's doing bad. His virtuous wife, she passed away. And now he's married to a woman who's not a follower of the Supreme Buddha, who doesn't keep the precepts, who doesn't know the Dhamma. And now he works for the king, stealing things from people. And when he can, he steals things right back from the king. And Venerable Sariputta said, oh, that is bad news. So see, this man, at one time, he was virtuous. He was doing good things. He had this good association with people who know right from wrong. But then the association changed, and his mind changed. His way of doing things changed. So the Venerable Sariputta went to see him and asked, Are you living virtuously? Are you keeping the precepts? And the man said, No, Venerable Sir. How could I keep the precepts? I have to support my wife, I have to support my parents, I have to support my children, I have to pay taxes to the king, I have to make offerings to departed relatives, to the devas, I have to take care of myself. How is it possible to keep the precepts? I have to earn a living, I have to make money. Right? So his moral shame and moral dread weren't very well established. His situation changed, and he forgot all of it. He justified. See, this is the thing, that we have a mind that can look at things very carefully, that can analyze the world. But it's also a mind that's full of defilements, full of greed, full of hatred, full of delusion. And so if we think that we can use this mind to analyze things and always come up with the right way to do things, we have to be very, very careful. Because here, this man thought that he was doing a good thing by stealing so he could support his parents, stealing so he could pay taxes, stealing so he could support his children. But the Venerable Sariputta said to him, for each of these things, you don't have to steal to do these things. You don't have to break the precepts to earn a living. There's many, many, many ways of earning a living and keeping the precepts. He asked him, when you have to die and the wardens of hell come to drag you down to hell, can you say to them, oh, you're looking for my parents, right? Because all those bad things that I did them for my parents. So you go take my parents to hell. That's why I did those bad things. Can he say that? He can try, but who are they going to grab? They're going to grab him, aren't they? Right? Can he say, oh, I did these bad things to pay my taxes. Go see the Canada Revenue Agency, right? Go there. They've got lots of people that you can have, right? I stole for them. I stole for the king. I stole for my children, right? I wanted them to have a good education. So now you go take them. They can go to hell for me, right? He said, no, it doesn't work that way. I'll have to experience those bad results. No one else can experience them for me. So then, little by little, using arguments like this, the Venerable Sariputta, he brought his mind back around. He said, so which would be better? Someone who can support his parents in a wholesome way or in an unwholesome way? And the householder said, certainly, it's better if you can do it in a wholesome way. So one by one, if you could support your children by keeping the precepts or breaking the precepts. So the Brahmin householder, he still had that much of a sense that, yes, it would be better if you could do it, right? And so eventually he came back around. He developed this sense of moral shame, of moral dread. He realized that there were going to be consequences of his actions. But before that, he wasn't thinking about that at all. And this is the very, very difficult thing about samsara, about the world, is that all around you are going to be people telling you what's most important, saying that getting your children a good education is most important, getting your children the best clothes, the best food, all these things are the most important, and whatever you have to do to get those things, you just go ahead and do it. It's your responsibility. But if we don't have this sense of moral shame and moral dread, it's very easy to get washed along with these worldly ways of thinking that happiness comes from material possessions, that we have to live in a huge house to be happy, that we have to have all these material things to get us happiness. Ordinary people won't tell you, it doesn't matter what your house is like. If you're virtuous, you'll sleep very peacefully. You don't need to have a really, really expensive bed. If you steal money to buy that bed, you won't sleep peacefully, will you? If you know that your parents are breaking the law to give you the toys that you want, to send you to a nice school, will you enjoy playing with those toys? No, you'll feel a lot of regret, a lot of sadness. So the Supreme Buddha teaches us we have to develop these two things very strongly. The sense that something's wrong, that we shouldn't steal, that we shouldn't kill, that we shouldn't commit sexual misconduct, that we shouldn't tell lies, we shouldn't use drugs and alcohol. Just this inherent sense that these things are wrong. Because if we don't have this very strong sense, then other people will start to argue with us. They'll say, well, just one glass of wine, right? That's not really drinking, right? That's not really alcohol, right? I meet very innocent children that come here and they say, my friends tell me that beer and wine, that's not really alcohol, so that's not really going to be breaking the precept, right? Not true. Not true. People in the world are going to tell you many, many things. They're going to make arguments with you in all sorts of ways, saying why you don't need to keep the precepts. So if we don't have this very strong sense of what's right and what's wrong, then we'll start to develop doubt. We'll think, well, maybe I should kill in this certain situation. Maybe this is the time I've been waiting for to steal something. That this is the really beneficial time to steal. But if we have this sense that doing these things is wrong, then we never have to worry. We never have to develop these doubts. And if we can always keep in mind, before we do an action, that it's going to have bad results, then we don't do that action. The Supreme Buddha taught us that we can look at our actions before we do them, while we're doing them, and after we do them. This is very beautiful advice that he gave to his own son. Very, very powerful. And if we don't have this sense of moral shame and moral dread, we won't be able to do this reflection correctly. So the Supreme Buddha taught us, before we're about to do something, we have to think, is this a good thing to do or a bad thing to do? He didn't say, go ahead and do it and see what happens. He said, think about it. Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt other people? Will I experience bad results from this? If I get caught, what will happen? If I don't get caught, what did the Supreme Buddha say will happen? Even if I don't get caught, I'll have to experience bad results from this stealing, from this lying, from this deceiving. So the Supreme Buddha said, if we do this reflection beforehand, then we give up whatever it is that we want to do that's a bad thing, that's going to have these bad results. But if we reflect on it, using this sense of shame, this sense of what's good and bad to do in the world, and we realize, no, this is actually a blameless thing. I won't get in trouble for doing this. It's not going to hurt me, it's not going to hurt other people. Then we can go ahead and do it, happily, peacefully. But the Supreme Buddha knew we don't always think before we do things, do we? It's very easy sometimes to do something without doing this reflection, especially if we have a lot of greed or we have a lot of hatred. Right? Someone does something that makes us angry, and they've done it many, many times, and finally we've lost all of our patience, and so we start to say really mean things to them, call them names, say things that otherwise we'd never do. The Supreme Buddha said, even while we're doing something, we can reflect. We can stop and think. He didn't say, once you've got going, it's too late. The deed is already done. You might as well finish it. Right? You might as well really give them a piece of your mind. You might as well really clobber them. Right? If you've already hit them once, you might as well make sure they don't get up, right? He didn't say it works this way. He said we can stop. Even if we're yelling at someone, we can stop and we can think, okay, these actions that I'm doing, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Am I doing it with a mind of hatred, with a mind of greed, with a mind of delusion? Or am I doing it with a very peaceful mind? If we realize that we're doing something with a lot of anger, with a lot of hatred, we can stop doing it. Right then, right there. And that there's merit to be found in that as well. That we don't think, well, I've already started, I might as well finish. But we can actually stop and think, okay, I've done enough. I can change. I should have reflected beforehand. I should have stopped and thought about this before I said it, before I did it. But even now, I can stop doing whatever it is that I'm doing. The Supreme Buddha said this is very, very good. If we realize, though, that what we're doing is okay, then we can go ahead and do it. We can finish it out happily with a peaceful mind. So when's the first time period that we want to think? Before we do something. If we can't think about it before we do it, then when? Yeah, while we're doing it. Is that all the Supreme Buddha taught us? No. He said even afterwards, it's beneficial to think about it. A lot of us, after we've done something bad, what do we like to do? Forget it, right? We realize that we've done something really foolish, that we've said something that we regret, said something that hurt someone that we care very much about. Maybe we've even physically hurt someone. And we feel so embarrassed that we don't even want to think about it again. We don't even want to see that person because it'll remind us what it is that we did. But the Supreme Buddha said, even then, we should stop and reflect on exactly what it is that we did. To think, this thing that I did, was it beneficial for me? Was it beneficial for the people around me? Did I really benefit by getting angry? Those names that I called that person, the words that I used, were they good for that person? Did I do them with a mind of loving kindness? Or was my mind just filled with hatred, just filled with anger? Most people don't like to think about these things. They'd rather just forget. But the Supreme Buddha said, even when we do something bad and we didn't stop it before, we didn't stop it while we were doing it, we can think afterwards. I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't beneficial. It didn't help that person. Whatever unwholesome quality I saw in that person, my yelling at them isn't going to fix it. Right? My hitting them didn't fix anything. It may have even just caused more anger to arise in them. And then we decide, next time, I'm going to try and remember before I do this thing. Right? Because if they do something that annoys us, chances are they're going to do it again. Right? That we'll get that second chance. And so then, having thought about it afterwards, we can think, okay, when they call me a name, when they steal something from me, when they gossip about me, right? I'm not going to get angry at them. I'm going to think about something else. I'm going to think about that person's good qualities. I'm not going to do something that I'm going to regret. I'm not going to give them reason to hate me, to do bad things to me. So, in this way, little by little, we use this sense of hiri and ottappa. We use this sense to evaluate the things that we're going to do, the things that we're doing, the things that we've already done. Because if we don't have this sense of what's a good thing, what's a bad thing, then we can't evaluate in that way. Many people, they really appreciate anger. Some people, you ask them and they say, yes, my anger, it's one of my best qualities. I can control people very well with my anger, right? People are very afraid of me. They do what I say because they know I'm going to get very, very angry if they don't do what I say, right? If it weren't for my anger, then people would walk all over me, right? You can find people like that in the world. It's not all that uncommon, right? People say, I get things done when I'm angry, right? That if I didn't get angry about injustice in the world, then I would never act to overcome injustice in the world. So I need this anger, right? You'll find lots of people who feel that way. And so this person, are they going to be able to stop and reflect before they say mean and nasty things to someone? Maybe this person doesn't deserve this. Maybe there's information I don't have. Maybe I don't know why this person is doing this thing. Maybe I should just be patient. Will they think that? No. They'll be ready with their anger, right? Ready to attack someone because they really believe that their anger is a good thing. So if someone doesn't have this basic sense that, yeah, anger, it's really ugly. We look ugly when we get angry. We do, not just we say bad things, but we do bad things with our body when we get angry. If someone doesn't have that sense, they'll get into all sorts of trouble. Because maybe their anger right now is just limited to what they do with their speech. But if they get angry enough, they could hurt someone. They could even kill someone because of that anger. So then the Supreme Buddha gave us some verses. So this is the meaning of what the Lord said. So in regard to this, it was said, those in whom shame and fear of wrong are not consistently found, have deviated from the bright root, and are led back to birth and death. But those in whom shame and fear of wrong are constantly, ever present, peaceful, mature in the holy life, they put an end to renewal of being. So this is very beautiful, isn't it? The Supreme Buddha is reminding us that if we have these qualities, if we're afraid of doing bad things, if we're afraid of the results of doing bad things, then our mind can actually become peaceful. If you explain this to your friend who's never heard the Dhamma, they may say, how could you have a peaceful mind if you're afraid of doing bad things? But actually, when we have this sense, really as a deep part of our mind, the way that we choose what we do, our mind can be very, very peaceful because we're never worried that we've done something wrong in the past or that we'll do something wrong in the future. When we sit down to meditate, then our mind can be very, very peaceful, not regretting what it is that we said to someone, what we stole from someone, the way we hurt other people. So let's listen one more time to these verses. Those in whom shame and fear of wrong are not consistently found, have deviated from the bright root, and are led back to birth and death. But those in whom shame and fear of wrong are consistently ever present, peaceful, mature in the holy life, they put an end to renewal of being. This too is the meaning of what was said by the Lord. So I heard. Sad, sad, sad. So again, the Supreme Buddha is reminding us about this samsara, that it's not just about this life. It's not just about having to see those those people when you have to go back to work on Monday or when you have to go back to school, that it's this continual round of rebirth that's happening because we don't have this sense of moral shame, this sense of wrongdoing, this fear of the results of our actions. That when someone doesn't have these things consistently, then they're always going to be doing things that are going to lead them to be reborn again and again in bad destinations. And so, because of not knowing these things, we ourselves have been born again and again in many bad destinations. And if we don't constantly develop these things, constantly establish these senses of what's right and wrong, and a healthy fear of the results that we're going to experience from these bad actions, then surely we'll be born again and again in many more bad destinations. But the Supreme Buddha has given us this very beautiful path, this path that's peaceful now, it brings happiness now, and it puts an end to this long round of samsara. So having heard the Supreme Buddha's Dhamma, may we always keep it in mind, may we always practice it well, may we always develop these two powers in our lives. And through the power of this merit, may we one day realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya.